this is a very special occasion. As commercial vehicle, we have done quite a few panel discussions. But this is a special privileged one for the very simple reason that this is a very structured and very goal-oriented discussion. Considering the kind of people that we have around, I don't need to go too much into detail as to how and what. You all do this for your daily activity. Broadly, what do we want to achieve here in this discussion? Witty Connectivity, who's organized this event. We want to look at what electronics accomplishes, where is it going, and what are all of you doing, and how are all of you connected in this universe. Because connectivity is the operational word of the discussion. Let me hand over the mic to Mr. Vishwanath so that he can offer you a perspective as to how and why TE Connectivity has decided to do this event.
Thanks, Sridhar. Good afternoon, everyone. A warm welcome to all of you. Nice to see a good crowd here, and I hope you have a good time in the next 1.5 hours that we are together. Like Sridhar kick-started the meeting, TE Connectivity is a global multinational company focused on connectivity solutions. We're there in 50+ countries. We are about a $13.5 billion revenue company. We operate in different segments of the market. Automotive is one of the biggest segments for us. And coming back to India, we are here for about close to 20 years. We work with most of the OEMs, tier 1 companies. A lot of them are global relationship. We are also very strong focus on the local relationship as well. So this event is very important for us. This is the first of kind where we are participating. Clearly from the banners around and what Sridhar gave insight, we are looking at how the trends will change. What are the key drivers in the coming years? And as myself, I'm seeing the change in the last couple of years compared to what it happened in the last 10 years. There's a rapid change. Like you see in electronics in probably a handset today or any appliance that we use at home, the pace has really picked up. Yeah, so, and we have already started seeing that in the passenger car. And I think it's right time now that we see this coming quickly into the commercial vehicle. Commercial vehicle, in terms of size, number of vehicle, it's not that big. But then it has to explode at some point in time. A country of this size with population clearly has to multiply in size. And I think we are at the right time in terms of, with this technology, what can we bring value to the customer? End of the day, I think that's the most important point. And we're happy to partner with the OEMs and the tier 1 in helping this drive.
So without much ado, let me throw the first question at Mahindra. Now tell me, Mr. Kumar Prasad, if you see all the other aspects that I mentioned, which are connected with electronics and electricals, safety, emissions, and infotainment, broadly, what is the trajectory that the automotive industry is taking? Can you highlight 2 or 3 areas which stand out for you?
I think, is it audible? Yeah. That's a, very broad question, but it has a lot of weight in terms of what we are trying to talk about, especially when you talk about emissions, safety, and one thing which is very apparent. In Indian industry, even with the current Auto Expo and also the previous expos that you have seen, is the level of contribution that is coming from, level of focus that is coming from industry for as far as emissions is concerned. I think that's an area which every OEM would agree that is getting maximum focus in terms of how do we make the powertrains more efficient and what and where does the automotive electronics fit in terms of supporting this to happen. Few things which are very apparent is almost everyone is working on hybrids right now. That's something which is very clear from what we have seen in the various expos or also symposiums that happen in India. But if you look at more from the technology penetration standpoint, I think it's also to do with how the embedded world has improved. Over the years, how the penetration of automotive electronics has come into various conventional systems also, which is resulting in improved efficiency of overall vehicle. I think that's, if I have to factor in terms of overall scale of 0 to 10 is contributing to maybe 7 in the scale if you compare with other hybrids and EV kind of topics. So I think automotive electronics in a broad sense influence from in terms of emissions is quite clear from the hybridization and electrification that's happening, but that's not the only one which is contributing to emissions, but also improvement in technology with respect to sensors, what's happening on the powertrain strategies as far as and the next gen architectures which are available. I think that's making a big influence. And not to forget on the safety side of things, I think you mentioned even safety in there with your question, especially in relation to the automotive parlance. We've heard a lot about ISO 26262 coming in, right? I mean, we've been speaking about conventional safety systems till now, where we restrict our focus still with, what does the airbag do, or how does the ESP come into the entire powertrain equation. The industry is basically jumping, I would say, in terms of overall complexity, huge steps when this, with especially the regulation is available in terms of what it means as a functional safety and what does it mean for automotive electronics as such in the industry. The level of complexity that we are going to deal with, and all the nice words that you mentioned about electronics making things lighter, and easier to manage, but it's also, if you talk to my validation colleagues, they'll say you're adding more trouble. So it's not getting easier in terms of getting things on road with so many electronic systems on the vehicle. I think functional safety is also going to govern things not only from a safety perspective, but also will help in an hindsight. I mean, if you look at it once it gets into picture, on how robust the overall electronic system is also going to be.
So it's like a veritable menu card. You've mentioned pretty much the whole thing on the scale. Let me pick up on the point that you mentioned. While the advances in electronics and what it does for the automotive industry is not deniable at all, he did mention there are a few challenges, Vishwa, in terms of carrying so much electronic content in a vehicle. What can TE as a connectivity company do to make it easier for somebody like a Mahindra?
Like I said in the beginning, I think the important factor is we bring some of our learnings from the other markets or in the passenger vehicle. We can work with the OEMs at the design stage and just make it miniaturization is one of the things that can help, or how do you make it more optimized with a platform approach. So we can help on the design stage, bringing experience from the other parts of our business or other regions, for example.
Would you want to cite a specific instance in India or abroad where you've had miniaturization play a role in adding value to the manufacturer?
That's a bit of a tricky question because in most situations we work with the OEM where we have limitations of sharing the best practice, but we are open. I mean, we have advanced engineering insight, so on specifics we can go into detail and work with OEM on a partnership approach.
So, what timeline do you see for miniaturization to kick in? I mean, when you say miniaturization, are you already seeing it in your vehicles?
When you shift from mechanical systems to electronics, already miniaturization.
It's already miniaturized.
But I mean, I know your question is more specific to automotive electronics here.
Yes.
So, I mean, definitely in terms of the overall packaging challenges, if you see, I've just mentioned that we have a lot of electronics which is going to get into the vehicle, and there's only limited space. Passengers, of course, we need to take care of our customer. He needs the maximum space, and we need to be as less intrusive as possible in his space and give whatever he wants. So definitely with especially the other industries experience that people are having. One specific example is, mobiles, for example, they get smarter, less weight, smaller in size with multiple features. So the paradigm shift for the customer has been, why can't I have this on my vehicle too? So from that perspective, I think if you look at it, this is something which the customer is already expecting right now.
So that's infotainment, right? That's a good area to look at when in terms of a wide array with miniaturization.
Correct. Absolutely. But what I'm trying to say is, I think if you're looking at the expectation from the customer as such, I think if they have products to offer, they would definitely, this is something that the OEMs are already looking at. But the key word for me is not only miniaturization, it's multitasking. I mean, how many different things a single ECU can do is more important than how compact it gets for me.
So intelligence is very important.
Exactly. Intelligence, and how do you basically, plan your architecture looking at what is required from the entire vehicle spectrum.
That is a good angle for me to talk to Mr. Dr. Gangopadhyay, who's been very patient, by the way. He mentioned that the electronics has to be more intelligent besides being compact. Now today, it's a cliche to say that product life cycles are shrinking. So with product life cycles shrinking, do you then have to get more bang from the same platform and make design intelligent and all the aggregates that much more intelligent? So within this context, what role does electricals and electronics have to play?
Thank you, Sridhar, for the question. Well, I represent the commercial vehicle industry, and as you all know, variant management is key in commercial vehicle industry. We have, literally, tens and hundreds of variants of vehicles, maybe not hundreds, but multiples of tens, easily for every single platform of product we sell. Now, if we look at the life cycle of these products that we want to achieve, with every passing day, that life cycle is getting shortened. And we do need to reuse platforms that we have used before in other products in the past. But we have, there's an advantage here, because once we start talking about electrical and electronics, if we just take the area of, let's say, powertrain, electronics actually does not care so much whether the engine is a 6-liter engine or a 800cc engine. If you take a common rail engine, whether it's a big engine or a small engine, the strategy of actuation of that particular system, common rail system, will remain the same whether it's a big or a small one. And that's the big advantage we have, and that's what we have been able to use. In fact, we have plenty of engines that we use in our products, but we don't have a different EMS system for every single engine. They are definitely reused from one platform to another. So that's in the EMS, in the powertrain area. If you look at let's say chassis application, ABS application, yes, certainly the application may vary a little bit from maybe we'll use number of sensors that are used, number of actuators that are used are slightly different, but the overall guideline of that ECU, how it achieves the effectiveness of that control, remains the same regardless of whether it's a 49-ton truck or a 10-ton truck or a 13-ton truck. So this ability of electronics to handle systems of different sizes more or less the same way. Well, maybe there are some differences in the I/O, the footprint of the ECU. Maybe you have a few more number of pins to handle a few more actuators, maybe a few more sensors are in there. But if you look at the core of that system, it essentially is able to control whether it's a big platform or a small platform or platform that we worked on 2 years ago and platform that we are working on today about the same way. Now, of course, the technology that we sometimes use in the electronics, as we move on from one year to next, sometimes it improves. We move on from an 8-bit controller to a 16-bit controller to a 32-bit controller, depending on our requirement as well as the silicon industries, their own product plan. As they change, we also change. But overall, if you look at the core of electronics that is being used from one platform to next, they remain the same. And in fact, it's not even within a platform. If you look at the core of electronics that is used in a EMS system as opposed to one that is used as, let's say, even a simpler domain as a body control unit, and then compare that with ABS, other than if you look at the hardware complexity, there aren't actually that much of a difference between them. They are all the same. It is just that how difference is all in software, because software is domain specific and it has to be different from one domain to another. But the core hardware remains the same, and that's a big advantage we have, because as that remains the same, our engineers who are working on it, we can move them from one platform to another, one domain to another, because unless they're writing domain specific software, which many OEMs, at least in India, we still don't do a lot of that. We depend a lot on our tier 1 suppliers to do actual domain specific software, and we are able to use our engineers to move from one domain to next, reuse the old content with the new product, and it is all possible because it's electronics. I'm not sure all of it is so easily, you can replicate this so easily if it was a purely mechanical system. So I actually thank the fact that we have electronics that is at the core of our vehicle for every single subsystem that we are trying to build in it.
So let me take two specific areas. You're migrating from the 497, 697 engines now to the 3-liter and 5-liter engines. On the bigger engines, you still have the Tata Cummins engines, but you still have the option of doing a 7.5-liter engine. So within this family of powertrain that you have, the engines that you have, is the electronic and electrical content common, or has there been some reinvention, some new work?
Okay, if you talk about, of course, all of these are electronics for engines, common rail system for that matter. It does come from tier 1 suppliers only. We don't develop that electronics. Now, if you talk about, as I was saying earlier, if we look into whether the electronics does the same job in all these engines or not, the answer is absolutely it does. Because at the end of the day, if it's a common rail system, if it has a EGR valve, and it has certain manifold sensors and rail pressure sensors, it will exactly work the same way. Now, of course, we do have multiple suppliers, so we do have to work with them. But when we do that, we make sure that the same EMS or ECU, particular version of the ECU that we are using on one engine, does translate, or does we can use the same thing on another engine with small variation. For example, you mentioned 697 and 497. It is not necessarily that they are fundamentally that different. The electronics is pretty much the same. One is slightly bigger because it has two additional injectors. So you'll have additional I/O for that. But if you look at the core, the heart of the system we have, you'll actually have the same software running it. In fact, we have applications where we may be running software from one, putting into another hardware because we have restrictions of whether it's a 24 volt or 12 volt. So we are easily able to do that, move software from one platform into another hardware, and then make sure, then if we do that, then we don't have to develop a separate 24 volt hardware because we already have one. And we are able to do that, and we are doing that today.
It's frugal engineering.
Absolutely.
So after treatment, that's an interesting area. Tatas have decided, because of the Cummins Association, to go with SCR as opposed to EGR. As Euro 4 dawns, will there be a lot of work for you to do in the electricals and electronics side when it comes to Euro 4 and SCR?
Well, as you said, yes, we have decided that we will use SCR on our large engines, where EGR, the fuel economy penalties that you'd have to pay with EGR, we may not want to pay. I mean, of course, this debate played on in Europe, 7 years ago. I mean, we are all aware of that, and we have those decisions. I mean, now going back to your question, so the electronics, for example, the SCR system we have today in our large engines are essentially bought out systems. It is not that we have done internal work to develop that system, but that system is scalable. We are able to use it in we will be able to use it in multiple platforms if we need to. At the same time, there are internal developments also going on, so that we are able to take care of much more of system integrations of SCR systems in the future. So in the future, you will see SCR systems where system integration is done by Tata Motors itself rather than completely bought out system.
So it will be part of the drivetrain, with electronics being the amalgamation entity.
Well, those decisions of how electronics definitely plays a strong role in SCR control. There's a lot of things you have to control in an SCR, starting from the injection of urea to heating control and things like that. And a lot of strategies are also involved. We have to estimate a lot of things, especially the same SCR when it's applied to a Euro 4 system. And from there, if you go to Euro 5, the sensors change. You have to look at NOx and all these other sensors that come into picture. So electronics is definitely at the heart of that system. And we are, as I was saying, today we have a system that works and we can scale it to other platforms. At the same time, we are working on other systems also. So you will see, in the future, you will see additional systems, SCR systems, where more of the internal, the system integration will be done by the OEM itself.
Vishwa, if you spoke on the two critical areas, the engines and emission systems, they are obviously very high priority areas. And how soon do you start working with the OEM into their product development program? And what kind of inputs do you offer?
Yeah, so it's always nice to start as early as possible. Yeah, so at the early stage of the design, if we get involved, we can give our solution. And also from a packaging standpoint, it becomes easy to select the right component there at that stage.
So, I know you don't want to be specific in terms of programs or manufacturers. Considering what you've heard from Tata Motors and Mahindra, in responding to their needs, to have new solutions come out of the same inherent platform, for them not to reinvent the wheel each time technology changes, how can you work? We spoke about miniaturization and intelligence. Is your Nano MQS a kind of benchmark towards offering them more value for the buck?
That's right. So Nano MQS would be a perfect solution. So again, we will approach the platform approach so that to make it design redundancy less. Yeah, so we have a complete portfolio which can fit into the requirement right now.
Have you already applied this new MQS platform with Indian OEMs, or are you in the process of doing so?
In the commercial vehicle, yes, but I'm not too sure about the on the passenger vehicle, right? But commercial vehicle, I'm not too sure.
Vishwa, you know that your connectors are not going to be handled in the best possible manner all the time. They're not going to be the best conditions in which they're handled. So do you work towards making your electronics as sophisticated as they are, connectivity solutions as effective as they are, also that much more robust? And if yes, then can you throw some light on what areas?
I think the two aspects that we need to consider is the vibration and the dust level, and clearly the operating conditions in India is quite different from the other parts. So we look at IP standards, and based on the position of where it is in the vehicle, we definitely have solutions, and we suggest so that it can take care of these basic 2-3 requirements, and appropriately we suggest which are the part numbers or which are the terminals and connectors should be used.
Do you have an extensive training program or orientation program by which you emphasize these aspects?
Yeah, so today what we do is we do what we call as a tech days, both with the harness makers and the tier 1 suppliers, and also with the OEMs. I think you made a very interesting point. We are also thinking in lines of how do we handle the post-sale, in the service station, because the traditional service station setup was very different. But I think as the more circuits are coming in, the electrical itself will be a big challenge in the service. In the past, it was just mechanical or other activities. But I think so that's something which we are very excited to focus, because it's going to be a very important part of the post-sale activity.
Moving from service, let's get to Indian OEMs. You're no longer just Indian OEMs. You're also international OEMs. They travel to Latin America or Europe or the US. So your vehicles have now to factor specifications for multiple geographies. When it comes to doing electronics across not just variants within India, but outside, and to have a quick turnover, what kind of challenges are there?
Well, as you pointed out, Sridhar, yeah, you are absolutely right. We are not selling our vehicles just in India. We are, our commercial vehicles are sold in Thailand. It will be sold in Malaysia. It's already sold in, some vehicles are sold in Southern Europe, Latin America, a lot of African countries. And one challenge we, of course, the countries where the regulations are behind the regulations we have in India is not necessarily a challenge, although that also becomes a challenge because we don't necessarily, because we have the older, such countries where the specifications are lagging what is in India, we actually have to maintain many more versions of our design which we don't necessarily want to. We would like to move on. We have BS4 vehicles here, I mean minimum BS3, and we would like to stay there. But there are markets where we are selling BS2 vehicles because that's the Euro 2 is the norm there. So that throws us, with, that gives us one kind of challenge, which is we would like to avoid, continue to work on, designs which are essentially backward than what we are already selling in India. But the other challenge, which is of course the bigger challenge, is we are selling in markets where we need to meet, other regulations. We already are selling vehicles where we need to meet Euro 5. So for the same engine that we are selling here, which you are selling as Euro 4 at best, we'll have to have calibration and electronics which is Euro 5. Now, going back to the same theme I had in the very beginning, the advantage, the reason we are able to do that is the fact that the electronics is actually capable of, meeting regulations beyond what we are meeting here. It's not just a question of, sometimes it could be a question of addition of a sensor or maybe modification of an actuator. And but in most cases, it's nothing more than just that, along with some change in software. So the real importance, that we see is being able to handle this variation of software in our electronics, because it varies heavily from one application to another. Rest of the stuff, your hardware, your sensors, actuator remain mostly the same, but how the software, is written, the functions, what it needs to achieve could be quite different. And of course, with software, the other thing that grows exponentially is the amount of calibration. Every piece of software, especially in an area like, may not be so true for a body or a chassis application, but for powertrain application, calibration grows exponentially as you go from one version of emission regulations to next, simply because the number of parameters grows like that. With every piece of new line written, they bring additional calibration parameters. So challenge, comes, where we have to manage all this more complex calibration, and along with that more complex software. Sometimes there are issues related to that software, of course, getting into that electronics, although that's not that common. And we are able to do that, though, by the way, because the electronics that is used to meet the lower levels of emissions or other standards for that matter is actually able to do much more if we add additional software to it. So I would say software has been a savior. Much of it is done through software, and because of that, we are able to manage to do this in multiple markets with multiple levels of regulation.
Absolutely. I think I completely agree with Anupam here. And over and above this, I think though the hardware and our embedded capability is there, there's no substitute to good requirement management. Good systems engineering expertise and how approach in terms of how do you attack this situation of different variants, and how do you basically take it back to the product platforms. I think if you miss anything at the initial stage, you're not going to recover it back anything. I mean, whatever may be the electronics, whatever may be the development capability that you have in the resources there. I think that's one of the key element, especially in terms of how we manage different variants going in for different platforms at different places. I think that's also extremely critical.
You spoke about the planning aspect. Now, see, increasingly we see aggregates talking to each other in the vehicle. The engine talks to the transmission is then connected to the other driveline elements. So there is intelligence right there. If you're talking cruise control, it is intelligence. All these elements work together. There's also a choice between doing either a 9-speed transmission or doing a twin-speed axle. So what are the kind of imperatives when it comes to electronics when such choices are made?
I think, just to make a point on lighter note, engine wants to talk to anyone, everyone. But coming back to the main topic, I think in terms of the overall architectural decisions which we make, it's also the functional image which drives the characteristics that you want to bring into the platform. And then, how do you basically deduce it to what is available? Does it require additional sensors or additional electronics to get on board, or can you manage with what is existent? I think that's most important thing. For example, you spoke about few things which are pretty much there in powertrain in most of the vehicles. But if you are bringing in a new feature, for example, in an existing platform, something like an advanced telematic system, okay, and take a simple example of a challenge as EMI EMC, which you have to, every vehicle has to pass. It's a basic revisit of the entire architecture in terms of engineering sense. How do you basically approach it? I think that's, from a planning perspective, it's the ability for our engineering teams to predict things much before they get onto the vehicle. That is basically simulations, doing multiple, be it at PSpice level or virtual MATLAB level, do a platform level estimation of what's going to happen, and then see what would be the architecture that would help us.
So, Vishwa, when you look at emerging requirements here, there's so much that needs to be done. What we started off with, if so much has to be done, obviously there has to be value. Value not just with product features, but also by making it more accessible to the OEMs. Not just price, but just the friendliness of your product. So, do you need to localize aggressively to fit the requirements?
Yeah, I think there are two parts to it. One is, first of all, you need to have a strong engineering strength here to support the requirement at an appropriate time with the appropriate input. So that, I think, we have a very good team here. In fact, a part of our team supports Europe and rest of the world. So they're connected on latest technology. So the engineering strength is already there. In terms of production, not necessarily that everything has to be done locally, because there are batch size and there are some critical raw material requirement, and also if it's running at a certain level, quality and standards, what's the time you want to localize. So there we take a little calculated approach in terms of timing it. But I would say more important at this point in time is the engineering support, where I think we are adequately staffed and poised to take this challenge.
When you look at the environment within India, the manufacturing environment, do you see your vendors getting themselves to the challenges that you face, the imperatives that you have, or does more work have to be done on that front with you?
Yeah, the typical raw material that we use is the resins or the metal. In resin, again, you have a base resin to be made, and then you have the compounding. So right now we have key vendors who have the compounding capability, but if you go to the base material itself, the same challenge. The size doesn't warrant that kind of an investment. So we're struggling on that. Hopefully coming days when the volume picks up, you'll see some vendors moving in that direction. But on the metal, it's a completely different game, because it calls for a much higher level of requirement, and we don't find most of them right now. So we're still importing. We are heavily dependent on import. But I think most of it is a volume-driven game.
Related question to you, Mr. Guha. How do you optimize the value of your offering? The most important obviously is that the OEM clearly defines the requirements and it's properly packaged so that there is no lack of economy in the effort, that you know exactly what you're doing. But otherwise, how can you optimize efficiency in production and delivery of your solution?
Okay. See, as you mentioned, I mean, there are two approaches to it. One is wherein the OEs define the requirement clearly, and they just give us a drawing, and all that we have to do is just to stick to the drawing specification and make the product. Okay, and that is one way wherein we believe that the optimization factor had already been considered by the OEs. The second approach is we partner with the OEs and we make the design in form of partnership, and thereby we try to create value by removing most of the fat from the design. Like for example, as I mentioned, I mean, looking at the electrical requirement only, we have huge amount of reducing the wire size itself. But then because of other factors like mechanical issues and other thermal issues and manufacturability issues, we have to set the balance right? So it is not only one thing that we have to take care of. There are plenty other things that we have to consider before we finalize the design. And at the same while doing this, we have developed enough experience and capability within our company to ensure that we are able to offer the best optimized solution using the technology which is available with us locally or otherwise also. So it is just not that it's just not about incorporating technology. It is about incorporating technology at what cost. That is what we have to consider constantly. Like, for example, as Mr. Prasad also mentioned, that it is just not for the sake of technology we have to embrace it. It is your technology, your cost versus benefit has always has to be kept in mind. So we have now enough exposure. We have now enough interactions with the suppliers like TE and other suppliers also and we keep ourselves busy in making ourselves aware of all the technological development that are taking place, which has the potential to be incorporated in our design to make it more optimized, both in terms of the weight, the space, and the cost. So cost is something which we can never ignore. That is what.
Before I leave the discussion, I want to have all the panel members offer their closing comments on what they feel are the imperatives and what they conclude from the discussion. And if one of you or two of you or many of you want to ask questions, we are welcome. Yeah. So can we start with Mr. Karnawat first?
Yeah, I think first of all, thank you for connecting all of us together and connecting to the audience here. So with all the discussion what we had today, I think a few things which are very clearly coming out are that the safety and emissions have become integral part of our future platform developments. I think these two things are probably driving the new technologies as far as the drivelines are concerned to a great extent, beyond the fit finish and the outlook of the vehicle, which probably the end customer is more concerned about. And on commercial vehicle side, it is just catching up probably to a great extent from passenger vehicle side towards commercial vehicle side. And we see a lot of technology flowing in, especially the JNN URM2 is a key issue and has been talk of town in every automotive company right now. And it has probably the kind of size of fleet probably we are looking at, from government orders. Is making compulsorily every OEM to really look at, focus and carry out developments. So like everybody said that it's going to stay and it's probably going to catch up very fast than what we realize really. And very soon we will see very advanced buses on the road, very advanced technology, and probably will soon get qualified drivers for it. Probably today there is no qualification criteria for the drivers. Very soon probably it would also catch up. So thank you.
Mr. Goha?
Thank you. I think it has been a very good discussion amongst ourselves, and I have very good questions coming from the audience also now. I would like to just, for wrap up, I would just like to mention few points, like why are we able to talk about miniaturization? We are able to talk about miniaturization because of advent of electronics. In fact, had there been no electronics, I mean, TE would not have been making nano MQS terminal, right? So because of electronics, it enables us to miniaturize, and therefore we have to miniaturize connectors. And because now we have miniaturized connector solution, we are able to downsize the wires. And because we are able to downsize the wire, we are able to reduce the weight of overall system, which will further, supplement the fuel efficiency that you are anyways achieving through electronics. So it is all around, it comes back to this whole circle. And in fact, all in all, because of electronics, you have fuel efficiency, and because of miniaturization, you have further fuel efficiency. There are challenges ahead because there are no straightforward solutions, but yeah, there is immense potential that if we are able to, which we are able to tap. I think we have a very good, both in terms of cost and fuel efficiency, we have a very good future.
Vishwa?
Yeah, like I said in the beginning, I think it was a very interesting and wonderful discussion that we had. It brings the point that the time is right. We're going to see more in the coming days of the commercial vehicle upgrade is going to happen. So I think it's from the environment, from the government in part, and also from the consumer. So I think I think we are poised at the right direction, I would say.
Dr. Gangopadhyay?
Thank you, Sridhar, for organizing this discussion. I see exciting time ahead of us in electrical and electronics applications in commercial vehicles. Whether you look at, powertrain domain or body or chassis or infotainment, driver assistance, there is electronic content is going to grow, is bound to grow in our vehicles, commercial vehicles that is. And that really excites us, as that is our community. And we of course, with that comes the, as Ritik was saying, then we'll have to miniaturize, and then the other suppliers who make the cables and connectors come into place. And we are really hoping that our endeavor to add electronic content in commercial vehicles will be fully supported by our suppliers, which I'm very glad to see that there's a lot of that is going on already. Our suppliers are gearing up, they're getting ready to supply, support us in our efforts. And I can only see that, what used to be a mechanical vehicle yesterday, not so far from today, essentially you are going to look at a vehicle which will look like, very much like, what you have in a passenger vehicle.
Suprasad?
Sure. Again, I appreciate the forum and the interactions that we had. I think it definitely fueled few thoughts and also some fire, I guess, to do much more. And I think from the taking a lot of safety, I can comment on all the OEMs from our side. I think Indian OEMs are committed to bring the best technology to the market. It always needs tier 1 support in terms of what kind of offerings they have. At the same point of time, as I mentioned, especially for passenger car platform, the passenger space is not something which we want to intrude. So miniaturization is something which is extremely important. But at the same point of time, how many different things that I can do with the same system is something which is extremely critical. I think with whatever I've heard and discussed, I think we are all on the right direction. It's only for us to basically tread the path and achieve what we want to do. Yeah.
That's a great way to conclude it. Thank you for investing your time in this event with us and for your attentive presence out here. Thank you very much. Can we have a round of applause, please, for the panelists?